Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to all the humans I see on screen. Welcome to the sound of hawks. The few hawk neighbors living next door to me right now, and I'm constantly out on my deck saying, "Stay away from my squirrels." It is a human-wildlife conflict for sure. But in this moment, I'm taking a moment to welcome the hawks, welcoming all of you to Sunday service as you come out of our waiting room. We are so glad to see your faces. I invite you to take a deep breath and arrive today. Good afternoon or good evening based on where you are. Welcome to the Compassion Consortium. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, and I'm joined today by co-founders Victoria Moran and Reverend William Melton. And as always, Phil is navigating us through Zoomland. We also have a number of great guests today, and we'll be introducing them as we go along throughout the service. In order to ensure we don't have a disruption during the service, we've turned off chat and whiteboard and the ability for participants to show video and things like that. We hope it also helps you sink into the service with nothing to do but be here now. And then we look forward to seeing you and hearing your voices later during fellowship time. We meet for Sunday service the fourth Sunday of every month. If you're new to us, welcome. We are an interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies community. Interfaith means we welcome people of any spiritual or religious tradition or philosophy or path or system of meaning making, and we feature those within our programming. Interspiritual means that we think that underneath all of those religions and spiritual philosophies, there lies a shared commitment to three common values: peace, compassionate service, and love for all of creation. And finally, our community is interspecies, which means we desire to consider the lives of and the potential needs of the many, many species that we share the planet with. At the beginning of each service, I offer an acknowledgement based on whatever habitat I happen to be speaking to you from. Today I'm in Stockton, California, land originally inhabited by humans described as the Yokut and the Miwok. This is also the habitat of sandhill cranes, the Sierran tree frog, of the half-edged wall-jumping spider, and the broad-footed mole, the long-tailed weasel, and myriad other walking, running, flying, creeping, crawling, fluttering, and slithering ones. And since today in our service, we're going to be featuring different members and our advisory board and frequent participants, I'd like to pause for just a moment to include you in this acknowledgement and have you utter silently the names of those who inhabit or perhaps used to inhabit the habitat that you live in. Take a moment to recognize and to acknowledge the tragedies, the joys that have permeated your habitat, from those you have personally experienced to those of the beings who lived there before you. We acknowledge the past to understand the importance of what we do in the presence. Since it is Membership Sunday, I've been thinking again about belonging, and more precisely, the trend toward what we call multiple belonging. Because as the world grew more and more multicultural and the internet gave us unfettered access to multiple perspectives, the mixing and mingling of religions and spiritual traditions and philosophy of life created this fluidity that we now see in people who are practicing individualized spirituality. Places where there used to be hard boundaries have often softened with a kind of mixing and matching in the name of acknowledging that there's not just one way to believe, but rather there might be one metaphorical mountain and a lot of ways to traverse it. Accordingly, we see people from churches and mosques and synagogues and temples and meditation centers joining together to work towards different facets of justice and of freedom. And so some of us find ourselves belonging to a range of communities that feed different needs or attend to different purposes that are important to us, that we hold dear. Which explains why, in addition to being a co-founder of this community, I belong to others as well. Which gets a little bit messy when people try to ask me, what religion are you? Depending on the day, I might answer you like this. I identify as a spiritually rebellious Christian who celebrates Shabbat with an irreverently pious Jewish renewal group, meditates with the Brahma Kumaris, and joyously observes the wheel of the year as long as the Sabbats don't conflict with my 12-step meetings. It's a heck of a lot easier to just call myself interfaith. When we founded the consortium, I decided to stay connected to some of those communities because of a couple reasons. They're important to me, and because I found that my voice is crucial there. I bring something special to conversations, a not always so quiet insistence that the community needs to consider needs beyond human ones. I am the proverbial Lorax. I speak for the trees and the fox squirrel and the black-tailed jackrabbit, and I also speak for those who get labeled Angus and Holstein. And it can be really, really tiring to do this work. And I can be brokenhearted when the people that I love don't love all the beings that I love. It's all too easy for me to slip into empathetic distress or dystopia or compassion fatigue. And that's exactly why William, Victoria, Erica, and I formed the Compassion Consortium. To be a place where we don't feel the pressure of needing to advocate alone to those around us. A sacred space where those voices are already uplifted. A place where when we speak about oppression and exploitation and things that aren't so pretty, and we also speak of joys and interview roosters and try Tai Chi with goats. Or perhaps meditate with turtles. And so we're hoping that those of you who have been around since we started, or have found us recently, or have found us just today, will consider becoming official members of the consortium. Later in the service, William will mention a few perks for new members and that are retroactive for current members, but I want to highlight something slightly different now. There is such thing as a sacred economy. Financially supporting organizations keeps them healthy. And it helps those of us who are planning and running and offering these services and answering emails to be a little less stressed about paying the Zoom bills and the website bills, or being able to fund outreach initiatives like our participation in the Parliament of the World Religions next year. So I want to be clear that William and Victoria and I don't take compensation for creating these services. And we personally funded a lot of the creation of this organization. It's a labor of love and of compassion, but we do need your help to sustain it. So the belonging member level is about $5 a month. And as you've heard me say before, you simply skip one soy milk latte or an herbal tea when you're out and about and help keep this community healthy. And I also want to underscore that you don't need to be exclusive with us. In fact, we're delighted either way. If we're your spiritual home, that's awesome. If we're your vacation RV, that's awesome too. We hope you're feeling places of multiple belonging like we do. And you also see the special space in this community and what it can hold for you and what we can accomplish together. All right, end of the pitch. Because you are also, of course, welcome to come here regardless of your membership, anytime you want, as often as you want, and we hope that you will do that. We love seeing every one of your faces all of the time. You're absolutely precious to us. Before I turn it over to William, I want to leave us with a final thought. It comes from a small little book I recently had the occasion to reread. Some of you may have read this. It's called The Animals' Lawsuit Against Humanity. Has anyone read this book? The most popular English translation is based on a Muslim Sufi work from 10th century Iraq, translated by a rabbi into Hebrew, rendered into Latin for a Christian king, then later translated from the popular Hebrew by Jewish folks into English, edited by a Christian, illustrated beautifully by a Muslim woman from India, under the patronage of a Saudi princess. The interfaith and multicultural tale illuminates intellectual debates about the uses and rights of animals. In it, members of the animal kingdom come forth one by one, from horses to bees. They come before a respected jinn, or in this translation, a spirit king, to complain of the dreadful treatment that they've suffered at the hands of humankind. And in the end, the spirit king delivers his judgment. Animals deserve to be treated better. But he does not go so far as to stop the exploitation of those beings or work towards their freedom. This beautiful, beautiful book, full of promise, falls short at the end of envisioning a world in which compassion and reverence for life and nonviolence are to be extended to all sentient beings. But we here, in this interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies community, can envision a world where humans do not believe they own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. It's why we gather here the fourth Sunday of every month. And so we hope you'll continue to join us, not only in that visioning, but working step after small step towards its reality. All right, William, that's all I've got.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is the point in our service where we always read or have one of our members read our Tenets of Agreement. Now, these are found on our website, and they are very important to us. They are really the whole basis for the Compassion Consortium. And today, our reader, our Tenets reader, will be Debbie Bradley, who is one of our members. She lives along the beautiful Gulf Coast in Mobile, Alabama. She's been a special education teacher for 25 years. Debbie previously volunteered with her local church's animal ministry, the St. Francis Guild, which helps support individuals struggling to care for their companion animals and helps other rescue groups care for animals in need, as well as offering an annual blessing for the animals. In 2017, Debbie transitioned from pescatarian to vegan. That allowed her to reverse both her diabetes 2 and her rheumatoid arthritis, and which now gives her life its defining purpose. Debbie is a board member on Mobile's only pro-vegan organization, Awakening Respect and Compassion for All Sentient Beings. I would like to turn this over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, I'm ready. So these are the Tenets of Agreement. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely with humility and respect in support of non-human animals and the earth.
Now is a point where we play our song of compassion, and we have a wide variety of songs of compassion, but today is kind of special because the person who will be performing via video, because she actually has a music performance today, is Sally Zito, who is one of our members. And Sally is a lifetime musician, and she's the daughter of musicians Joseph Zito, best known as Nat King Cole's road conductor and arranger, and Roberta Zito, a singer and dancer in Nat King Cole's touring dance troupe. Sally graduated from Berklee College of Music with a degree in film scoring. And since awakening to the grave injustices committed against our fellow Earthlings, she has dedicated all of her writing and music to the need for animal liberation now. So the song that we're going to play today via video is called Still the Line, Still the Line. And she wrote this as a visualization of the end of factory farming production lines, AKA kill lines, and as a call to activists to keep on standing up for fellow Earthlings until total animal liberation is achieved. So Phil, can you play our Song of Compassion now?
Still the line, stop the trucks, freeze the production, take them down off their hooks, tell the knocker to put down his gun, swing the gates up and let them all run, 'cause today is the day that everyone claims that they have compassion. Still the line goes on, filled with all the forgotten ones. We will stand up until every last one of them is free. Still the line, still the line. Take those gloves and masks off, let the plastic wrap drop to the floor. Lead them out of there, kill them no more. Still the line goes on, filled with all the forgotten ones. We must stand up until every last one of them is free. Thank you.
Wow, we have some really talented members. Thanks to Sally, when you're watching the replay here, you're being in two places at once. We appreciate so much your musical offering. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Reverend Debbie Philp. So Debbie is an interfaith minister, a shamanic Reiki master teacher, and a state-licensed wildlife rehabilitator who specializes in injured freshwater turtles. Her ministry and teachings are centered in spiritual ecology and reflect her commitment to deep interconnection with the Earth's wild beings. Debbie, the floor is yours to offer us an interspecies spiritual practice.
Thank you for inviting me to share one of my spiritual practices today. The shamanic Reiki is a blend of shamanic healing techniques and traditional Reiki energy healing. When I train shamanic Reiki healing practitioners, I guide an exercise that helps to shift your vision into a less focused and more expansive state. In my own work with this exercise, I started seeing others' energy bodies, Eventually, it became easy enough to shift my vision whenever I desire, and now I can see the energy in animals and even sometimes the trees. When I do, the threads of connection between us become clear. All the beings around me, squirrels, birds, turtles, of course, are magical. They're just waiting for us to notice. And this exercise is one way that you can start to see it. So I invite you, if you wear glasses, to take them off and get comfortable. And for now, turn a bit so that you're looking away from your screen or past your screen at where you imagine the horizon is in the distance, as if you were watching the sunrise. Now take a deep breath and close your eyes. Take another breath. Now open your eyes and gaze straight out at the horizon again, as if you were watching the sunrise. Without moving your head, look down with both eyes toward the earth. Look straight ahead. Keep your head still and look up as high as you can to the heavens. Look straight ahead to the horizon. Now gaze to the left as far as you can. Look straight ahead. Head still, gaze right as far as you can. Look straight ahead. Take a deep breath and close your eyes. Open your eyes and gaze to the horizon again, and let's repeat it. First, gaze down to the earth. Now straight ahead. Don't move your head as you look up to the heavens. Look straight ahead. Gaze left as far as you can. Look straight ahead. Head still, gaze right. Look straight ahead. Take a deep breath, close your eyes. Again, open your eyes, gaze out to the horizon. Gaze down toward the earth. Straight ahead. Look up to the heavens. Straight ahead. Gaze left. Straight ahead. Gaze right. Straight ahead. Take a deep breath, close your eyes. Now open your eyes and repeat this a few times on your own. The sequence is look down, look up, look left, look right, always returning your gaze to the sunrise in between and closing your eyes for a moment at the end of the cycle. You can go as fast as is comfortable for you. One more time, look to the horizon. Gaze down toward the earth, straight ahead. Look up to the heavens, now straight ahead. Gaze left as far as you can, straight ahead. Look right, gaze straight ahead. Take a deep breath and close your eyes. Now rub the palms of your hands together. Rub them together hard, really build some heat there. And when your hands are nice and hot, cup your hands over your closed eyes and then open your eyes inside your hands and let the heat begin to flow in. Draw the heat from your palms into your eyeballs, back into your eye sockets, and right into the center of your skull. And as the heat flows, soften your eyes. Just for another moment. Now close your eyes and release your hands. And when you open your eyes, gaze softly outside if you can, if you're near a window. Gaze at the beings you share your space with, or let your eyes return to the screen and watch the video Phil is starting for us of some of the wild beings in my world. Look softly, allow your vision to shift, and see beyond what you usually do to the magic. Now close your eyes for a moment and intend your vision to return to normal. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back to the service. And I thank you for practicing with me.
Oh, Debbie, thank you so much. The beautiful, beautiful offering. And now I hand it over to Victoria and Ivana.
Thank you, Reverend Sarah. Thank you, Debbie. I love your yard. I want to come visit. When I came back from Tibet back in the 90s, we were visited by a wonderful young Tibetan doctor who had escaped, and she was staying with us in Kansas City. What are those little animals? What are those amazing little animals? And they were, of course, squirrels, underappreciated and quite spectacular. It is such a pleasure for me today to be speaking with someone that I admire a lot and someone who just makes me happy. I met Evanna Lynch in 2018 when she came here to interview me for her Chickpeeps podcast. And she walked in the room and it was just like spring had come. She just had this beautiful lightness and this lovely energy. And I'm just crazy about her. I'm very fortunate to have a daughter and a stepdaughter, but I also feel like I have a few honorary daughters, and I feel that way about Evanna. So it's so
Aw,
lovely to have you with us.
sweet. Well,
So
Victoria, I always say that you're my vegan fairy godmother because you remind me a lot of my own mom, but she doesn't have the same connection with animals. And I remember when I first found your podcast, I just felt so like I hadn't encountered people like that who talked about animals like that. I'd only seen the very sort of aggressive side of activism, and you taught me a new way. So I'm just so honored by what you said, and I'm so pleased to be here. It's like it's making me very emotional, witnessing everyone speak so much about their love of animals and about kindness. And as someone from a religious background, it's very alien, but it's also very healing to have these two worlds connected. So
that's
anyway, I'll let you
exactly,
talk.
well, that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. So let's talk about animals and you. And I think everybody could agree that almost all children really love animals. They wouldn't make all the storybooks about them if we didn't. And yet, over time, most people learn to maybe unlove them or love them conditionally, and you didn't. So tell us about where you come from and how you became the person that you are.
Yeah, well, I was lucky to grow up around animals, to always have that connection nurtured. Lived in the countryside, and I, like a lot of people do with animals, they find that there was a connection I didn't have with other people. It transcended language, and there was this stillness and this acceptance of each other that you didn't get from people, or maybe not right away. And yeah, I guess we were just always taught to respect them and protect them. And I was lucky. I mean, my parents were not vegetarian or vegan at all, but they didn't try and hide it either. When I started to ask those questions, they kind of got a bit uncomfortable, a bit awkward, but they didn't explain it as these are lesser beings, they don't deserve life. They kind of went, well, it's just the way it is, and that's what we do. And but I do think a lot of my connection with animals comes from the stories I grew up with. We were always watching films and stories that encourage compassion to animals, like Charlotte's Web, Babe, Chicken Run, all these stories that were not explicitly animal rights or anything. It was just about these are beings who want to live, and the people who are impeding that right to live, they were the enemies in the stories. And yeah, I think as I got older, it didn't sit right with me, that I didn't understand the difference between, this little dog on the couch and the whole quote unquote farm animals, and nobody could explain it. So yeah, I didn't get the answers, and then I started to look for them myself, and luckily started to find other people who were echoing what I was saying, what I was questioning, and they were showing another way of life. So yeah, that's sort of my journey.
It's a lovely journey. Well, let's talk about the little dog on the couch and companion animals in general. So, do you have a cat as well? And
Yes,
and more recently, rabbits.
rabbits.
And I know that that's caused you to do some thinking about companion animals and how that works for vegans. Tell us what you've been ruminating.
Yeah, it's brought up a lot of ethical debate. So, and we also have fish. My boyfriend rescued these fish, and I feel very uncomfortable with it. So we've built them a pond, but it doesn't feel vegan. It doesn't feel like, I'm thinking we've got this whole entire earth. And what you said in your tenets that you read earlier, that we don't own the earth. I really believe that. And it does make me sad, but there's this other thing of, oh, these are animals who've been raised and bred in captivity. If you just put them in the ocean, who knows if they'll survive, so I am battling with that. And I think when I first went vegan, I was like, it was very binary to me. It was like, this is right, this is wrong. And the deeper I get into it, the more it's like each new thing you have to navigate and question, and you sort of have to just go inwards and what feels right, what, you will not find the perfect solution, but you'll find a way where it feels right, I suppose. But But yeah, I wanted to talk about that with you because I know you've raised a pigeon in a New York apartment, and that must pose challenges. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, it poses challenges because he's a wild creature. And in the best of all possible worlds, he would not be blind in one eye. He would be able to fly like any other pigeon, and he would be out on the streets of New York City. But he probably would no longer be alive, because one statistic that I learned is that the natural life of a pigeon in captivity, as Thunder is about 20 years. And the average life of a pigeon in New York City is a year and a half, because there are people and cars and dogs and not enough food and not the right kind of food and weather and all these other things. So it's really a trade-off. I know that Thunder doesn't have the three things that seem to make life as a bird what it's supposed to be: a flock, flight, and a mate. And yet we're trying to make up for that, not only with additional longevity, of which he's getting a lot, but just trying to give him a loving environment. And he does seem to think of us as his flock. And I've noticed that since our dog passed away, it seems he's trying to be more communicative than ever. And one of the things that I missed after Forbes went to heaven was having somebody greet me at the door. And now, for the first time, when I come in, Thunder will fly up. He can fly a little bit and flap his wings and make pigeon sounds, which he didn't used to do. I guess he thought, well, somebody's already greeting you at the door. But now he does that. So I think just in this way of seeing, it's not going to be perfect. We just try to do the most good we can. What's it like with the bunnies?
Another challenging situation because, they are both prodigious escape artists and notorious prey. So I want to give them freedom because I want them to have those impulses, to honor those impulses to dig and everything. So again, it's like they're not like cats or dogs. They're more wild. And I just never want to put them in a cage, but there are limits. I live in London. It's an urban city, so yeah, it's about navigating that of like, I'll give you freedom, but I also have to protect you, and you may not like it, but the world is not perfect, and yeah, you have to just sort of find a way. But yeah, I in some ways I'm like, oh, as a vegan, I probably shouldn't have got pets. I shouldn't have taken this on. But that, I think that's more me trying to be perfect and trying to tick all the right boxes, and actually taking on the messier problems of domesticated animals. We've done this. It's our responsibility. I think that's a good thing to do, to rescue animals. But yeah, it's challenging.
Well, and I agree with you. And I think that being vegan, if you just look in a dictionary, all it says is vegan is someone who doesn't eat animal products. And all these other things, I think we have to work through. And there's some people, as you know, who very adamantly believe that companion animals should not be a thing. And I, of course, am thinking, but they're here. And some, certainly the cats and the dogs that have lived with humans for so long, they're part of us, and they just do so well with us. And certainly some of the wildlife who can't be living outside. So I think part of it is standing up to the vegans who think they know how it ought to be for every other vegan. I think you may run into a little more of the hardline vegans in the UK than we do so much over here. What's that like?
I don't know if I mean, it's always people online who you encounter, but I really believe that your energy, it's that like attracts like. So when you have your boundaries and know, I'm going to do my activism a different way, you tend to attract those people. Like, that's how I met you. That's why I'm here on this call, all these open-minded, kind-hearted people. Yeah, that's just not the way I do things now. So it's not much of a problem.
I want to talk a little bit about you. And you're known, of course, as an actor. And when you played Luna Lovegood and developed a reputation in the world, you were a teenager, but now you're all grown up. And yet I think that there are thousands of people who still think you are that young girl in the movie, and maybe even the character herself. So how have you managed to embrace that and yet rise beyond it? I mean, I think that every young person has to separate from the parents, but you also had to separate from Luna Lovegood. How did you do that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because as you say, a lot of people will just be discovering those books and movies, and that's personally where they are. I'm currently reading a book that was written in the 70s, and that author is dead, and yet I'm submerged in this world. So when I meet those people, I kind of have to go, that's where you're at. That's amazing that you're immersing yourself in this world. But yeah, I that is my past. I don't want to be trapped in that part. So I suppose as artists, we have to evolve, and we have to honor our artistic integrity more than the commercial stuff. I don't know if you saw that the movie about Elvis, the Baz Luhrmann one, but there was a lot of lessons in that about if you ignore that evolution of your own artistry, it kind of just drains your soul. So yeah, things like that for me. I don't really go to big Harry Potter events as much anymore. I try and pursue other callings, even though that might be the thing that makes people happiest, or it's definitely the thing where there's lots of money, all those things. I have to kind of stand firm and go, that's not good for me. That's not who I am. That keeps me trapped in someone who I'm not anymore. So yeah, it's just about knowing myself and who I am today, I think.
When you wrote your beautiful book, The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting, which if anybody hasn't read it, oh my gosh, you were in for such a treat. And I actually recommend the Audible book because then you get to hear Evanna telling her own story. And it's the tragedy and the glory of growing up is the subtitle. And you talk about growing up, and you also talk about a struggle with anorexia. And some of that time was when you were making the films. And I remember a part that just really broke my heart was when you were making one of the films and they told you that if you didn't eat more or gain weight or do something of that nature, that they were going to find somebody else to play this role, which was so, I think, just ordained for you. And I thought about that young girl being able to withstand that and stand up to that and do what was needed and go forward. So where do you think that came from? I guess I'm asking you about soul strength.
Mm-hmm.
What did you find within you, and what do you still find?
So with anything, like, any sort of struggles we have, any disorders or addictions or whatever, I don't believe that recovery for the sake of recovery is possible. I don't think it's a thing. Because, anyone who has those extreme conditions has something that they're sort of devices. Like my disorder was a device to avoid pain. And it was helping me in some way. And it helped me numb these very painful feelings that I didn't want to deal with, didn't know how to deal with as a young person. So the whole thing of like tearing that away, seeing it as a sort of a demonic force, as something to be banished, it didn't work. I kind of needed something that had a very different energy to it to replace it. And for me, that was creativity, and acting was sort of a form of that. That was one iteration of it. But I always think like that was probably a good thing for me to have these, to be challenged at points. Are you going to continue pursuing your disorder, or are you going to pursue this dream? And you know, I think it's lucky, or I think it was meant to be, that the energy of like an eating disorder, which is all about perfectionism, staying safe, just kind of very narrow, limited, perfectionist view on life, is so different to creativity. You know, creativity is expansive, it's daring, it's not being perfect, it's showing up anyway. And the more I was kind of pushed to pursue that route, the more I was able to let go of the other thing, because you cannot sustain both energies. You cannot be a perfectionist and make art, you know, good art. You have to kind of let that go and surrender. There's so much about creativity which is about free fall. You cannot control it. So I think that that's where it came from, rather than any kind of summoning this strength. It was just about choosing creativity.
That is so interesting, because as you know, I had an eating disorder as well. Mine was the other side. I was a binge eater. And I remember seeing a movie when I was a teenager. It was about the playwright Lillian Hellman. And in one scene, she was drinking booze from the bottle, chain smoking, eating a hero sandwich, and typing. And I remember thinking, see, that's why I have to have this addiction, because it fuels my writing, until I learned that it didn't fuel anything except
Wow.
making me sleepy. But that's so interesting that you say that creativity and addiction can't live in the same space. I've
Yeah,
certainly
I think
found that.
eventually, and then you know, you do try and sustain them both. But for me, it reached a point of like, I'm compromising on one. I can either fully go for sort of self-destruction, or fully go for, I don't know, creativity, and you're always going to be losing out on one of them. Oh, have we
Yeah.
just lost? Oh no, sorry. Yeah, that's how I see
Cool.
it.
So you're doing something now that's very exciting, a new podcast with Dr. Melanie Joy. It's called Just Beings, about this, a little bit what we've been talking about, that juxtaposition of inner strength, inner transformation, and social change. So tell us what we will hear when we tune in.
Yeah, so I think both of us, Melanie and I, we've been having discussions about wanting to create like a space for wellness that includes animals, which is exactly what you're doing here. But you know, it's there are so many podcasts about how to improve yourself, how to make change in society, and we just felt like animals were often left out. However, when you put the V word, the vegan word on it, it's people immediately think, oh, that's a vegan podcast for vegans. And that's what I found with my podcast, The Chickpeas, which I love. It was a very lovely, safe, warm space. But I noticed that, you know, lots of compassionate, interesting people in my life didn't listen to it, or didn't think, oh no, it's not for me. But it is. It's for people who I believe are compassionate, do want to be kind to animals as much as possible, but you know, maybe don't know how, or maybe feel excluded by certain labels. So yeah, it's that, I suppose, just a more inclusive wellness space. And it is also about balancing inner work with social change, because I think I've personally not always got the balance right. I would tend to either have squirreled myself away and not be doing the other work, or I'm really relentlessly pursuing activism. And I really feel like your inner state mirrors your outer world, and you have to find a way to balance them. But it's hard, so we have a podcast about it.
Oh, I think it sounds wonderful. So who has been a guest so far?
We've had Joanne Molinaro, the Korean vegan. She is sensational. Also a storyteller. We've had Lily Cole, who is she was a model. She's an environmental activist. Oh gosh, we had the Happy Pair, a vegan sort of cooking duo. Lovely men, lovely, cheerful, happy people. Yeah. That's a few to
Oh, that sounds
tickle your
great.
taste buds. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to all listen to that. Just beings. Now, we have a question from Caitlin, and actually, the chat is open. If anybody has a question, if you'd like to put it in there, you can either direct that to me or just direct it to everybody, and I should be able to see it. So, Caitlin, whom I don't think is here on the live call, but she's asking a question that is so important, because I think those of us who have been vegan for a long time, when somebody says, well, how do you become vegan? We just say, well, you get up in the morning, you eat vegan, you dress vegan, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal because it's not doing what society does. And it's a huge change. So I want to read exactly what Caitlin wrote. Hi, Evanna. Incredibly lovely to share this sacred time with you. My question is, how long have you been vegan, and was it a hard challenge to follow that path? I've been trying to go vegan for years now, but it's quite a hard thing for me to stick to, no matter how hard I want it. I was wondering if you had any tips that could help me go down the path I really wish to go down. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Ever so grateful.
Oh, what a lovely question. So nice. Gosh, I mean, I'll just speak from, I suppose, my experience of it, Caitlin. But I think I would be the first to admit it is hard. I know some people don't find it hard, but I really did. Yeah, my relationship with food was complicated, so it wasn't just a matter of giving things up or switching them out. I would say though, whenever there's something in my life that I don't feel like I'm fully committed to, or I waver on it, things like that, I always kind of try and ground the why. And I've done this with many things. There's been other things in my life, like I've had to confront, like maybe there's periods in my life where I have not been as committed to my acting career, and I have to go, well, why is this? Because I think I want it, but do I? And I think you have to go deep and kind of figure out, is it is it somebody saying, oh, this is what you should do, or is it that you have an idea that vegans have the right idea? I think you have to get it like a heart-centered reason. And for me, that was like about reading. The more stories I read about what animals went through, the more it became, this is something I willingly want to do, and I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to kind of go out my way to do it. Just off the top of my head, there's like a story I always come back to in your book, Victoria, where you talk about the cow who was reluctant to go into the slaughterhouse. And there's just this phrase that's always stayed with me of how the farmer came back and let it in, and you said that they trust us and we betray them. And it, like, that kind of image and language really gets me like in my heart, in my gut, and that's my why. So whatever anyone else says, I know what I'm doing it for. So I would say first, Caitlin, to kind of really ground your why, forget about what everyone else is saying. But and if it is something you feel like you're not 100% certain on, do some research, go to those places, why you're doing it. And then I think the second part of that is to just find ways to make your lifestyle more joyful. Like if it is about certain foods that you're really attached to, just take a little bit of time every week to research how to find alternatives or how to make those things. I think it should be a choice you make willingly, and you need to learn ways to make your lifestyle feel joyful. Those are my tips, but it's a process, and go easy on yourself. Like there are many ways to be kind to animals, and if you're not fully there with veganism yet, that doesn't mean you can't show up in other ways, I think.
Beautiful. And Caitlin is with us live. So, hey, Caitlin, I'm glad you were here. We are on the clock and we have 30 seconds left. There is another question about managing veganism while traveling from Sherry. So if Evanna, if you're going to stay around, or anybody else that would like to answer Sherry's question and give your travel tips, I know that would be appreciated. But to keep us on schedule, I just want to ask one last quick question. What's the best thing in your life today? What is making you get up in the morning?
Oh, my aerial hoop. I got an aerial hoop put up in my garden. I know you're a big aerial fan too. But yeah, that whole thing of just using my body, like we're spiritual beings, but we're in our bodies. So I feel very joyful at the moment about using it and strengthening it and testing it. Yeah, it's such a joy.
Ah, it's a wonderful thing to be able to fly in more ways than one. Ivana, bless your heart and your hoop. Thank you so much. Thank you for being
Thank
with
you,
us.
Victoria. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Such an
And
honor to be here. It's a lovely
bless
way to
you.
spend my Sunday evening.
Thank you. And it's quite evening for you in London. So thank you for staying up for us. Okay, Reverend William.
Now is when we have our Compassion in Action segment. And we always highlight somebody in our community who's, just doing something special or very interesting in the way of extending compassion to non-human animals. And today, we're going to actually be joined by 3 of our members, Dave Simon, Reverend Nathan DeMay, and Jacob Blue. I'm not going to ask you specific questions, but what I wanted to do was give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about what you're doing and, the things that you've been doing that kind of resonate with the mission of the Compassion Consortium. And in particular, I would like you to share with us, what is it that drew you to the Compassion Consortium? What is it that caused you to become a person who extends compassion to all beings? And was it an aha moment or was it a journey? And this is particularly interesting to me because until I married Victoria, when I may have been 46 years old or somewhere around there, I did not have a clue. When I ate a steak, a beef steak, it never occurred to me that piece of meat had been a living being and the torture that it had gone through as a living being. When I drank milk, I had no idea what really happens to cows. When I saw a bug on the sidewalk, I just squashed it. I was totally clueless. And then I married Victoria, and then all of a sudden I started to understand, but it still wasn't an aha moment. It was a process. It took, I don't know how many years, but it was a journey. And so let's just start, David, I see you first. So can you just share with us about your journey to where you are today?
So I went vegan in 2008 for ethical reasons. I watched videos about factory farming and that convinced me. But for me, my vegan journey was really about animals and animal activism. And I would say in the early stages of my vegan life, I was an angry activist. I went through a phase that many activists, I think, go through. And my vegan journey sort of evolved to have a spiritual component, because I think, at least for me, maybe not for everybody, for me, the meaning of vegan needs to be more inclusive than just compassion for non-human animals. It really needs to mean compassion for all beings and for myself. And a few years ago, sort of when we were in the midst of both fear related to the pandemic and sort of a political environment of a lot of hate, a lot of politicians in this country and elsewhere who espouse and foster a culture of hate, I just sort of added this mindfulness component to my vegan journey, started meditating. And when somebody told me about Compassion Consortium, I went to the first online meeting where there were people meditating at a farm sanctuary, and sheep came up and nuzzled the meditators. And I still can't describe that experience without weeping, because it was so moving.
I remember that. I distinctly remember that. Yes.
And that is what I saw an immediate fit. Like this is exactly what I'm going through. This discussion of where veganism meets mindfulness is exactly what I'm going through in my life, and this was a perfect fit for me.
Okay.
So I'm so grateful that that you, Sarah, Victoria, Erica put this together.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So, Jacob, you're up.
All right. Yeah, so very similar to you, William. I'm from Houston, Texas, grew up in West Texas, right on the border of Texas, New Mexico. So deep in the heart of barbecue, meat country. I did 7 years ago. If you would have told me I was on this journey, I probably would laugh at you, told you you're crazy. So it was in 2016 where I took on this vegan journey, and my life changed for the betterment forever. So yeah, so I have, I even have a blog. The blog is, it's clickbait. Said I am not meant for veganism. At times of my early career as a teen, I was a butcher, worked in a meat market. I'm deathly allergic to cats and dogs. I grew up in the country where when we were bored, we would interrupt the wilderness with by any means necessary. So all those things mixed together, I was not meant to take animals lightly. It was bothering animals, and again, being allergic to cats and dogs, I had no sentimental value, no compassion, no sensitive bones in my body towards any animals. And so actually going vegan, it was July of 2016. I was on a journey of trying to figure out, I was on a health journey of trying to figure out why I was so tired. Prior to that, I tried water diets, I tried sleep exercises, I tried juice cleanses. I just tried so many different things. I tried mushroom coffee, and I was like, I heard podcasts about vegetarianism and diet veganism. So I was like, I'm gonna try veganism for 21 days. It was July 1st. I was like, I'm gonna do veganism for 21 days. No problem. My wife and I, we've done Daniel fasts, which is a vegan diet, which biblically the optimal time in human history a human has been is when they were vegan, which is pretty fantastic. So we're familiar with it. So was going to, do that. I knew that I was capable of trying it. Literally, we had a 4th of July party that Friday night. Was July 1st, Friday night party. I was barbecuing chicken and sausage and all kinds of stuff, and on the side I have vegan veggie dogs. And the next day we were cleaning up. My wife wasn't even going to go vegan at the time. She was very supportive, but she wasn't going to go vegan at the time. The next day we're cleaning up from the party, and I usually throw on some kind of documentary. It's completely coincidental. I usually throw on some kind of documentary just to kind of have something on in the background, and throw something on in the background while we're cleaning up the house, washing dishes, just straightening up from the party. And I see a documentary that caught my eye. I was like, hey, this looks cool. I have no idea what it's about. Most of y'all might respond in like a, wow. But I was like, this is a cool poster. It's a cool word. And it was called Cowspiracy. And I was like, oh, this is a cool poster. I thought it was about conspiracies. I was like, ooh. So I put it on. 10 minutes in, with the way I say it, it was the Holy Spirit punched me in my gut and said, you're on the right path, Jacob. You're on the right path. You're on your right journey. You are right where I want you. And my wife, who was not on the vegan journey with me in that short time, sat and watched the entire documentary, bawled her eyes out, came in the kitchen and she said, I'm doing this too. We cleaned out our kitchen, threw away all our non-vegan stuff. 6 years later, I'm a vegan lifestyle coach and educator through Main Street Vegan. She was upstairs during this meeting on a advisory board for Peaceful Planet Lifestyle Dogs. another Houston vegan organization. We're both deeply rooted in the Houston vegan world and even small roots throughout the United States. Very, very proud, and we're excited to be a part of this community. Faith plays a big part of our life. Traditional denomination in Texas plays a big part of our faith in our lives, and we're excited to see where our life goes in the Compassion Consortium journey here. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Reverend Nathan, you are a graduate of the same interfaith seminary as I am and Reverend Sarah. So
Yes.
tell us your story.
So really for my entire life, there are two things that have been extremely important and fascinating to me. And those are religion. And I mean that in the broadest sense, like every kind of, I'm still at this point in my life, I'm still uncovering religions I've never heard of before, and animals. And similarly, there are always new species or new animals that I'm learning about. So growing up, I had kind of a disconnect between my love of animals and, eating the way most Westerners eat. I was the kind of kid that wanted to, save the cow, spare the cow if I actually saw the cow, but then it didn't always translate into, my understanding when I was eating. So for me, I guess there's this deep kinship with other beings that I experience more deeply even as I age. We have now 2 beagles in our house. We rescued one a couple of weeks ago who was part of a raid done by the government against an organization called Envigo. I don't know if people are familiar with that or not, but Envigo breeds beagles for laboratory experimentation, and they were shut down because the conditions of their facility were so bad. So there were about 2,000 animals that were rescued from that facility in Virginia, and one of them is now living with us. And I look at her, she has a tattoo inside of her ear. That would have been her name, was a series of letters. And I don't know. I can't imagine harming her. I can't imagine subjecting her to that kind of life. The other beagle that we have is also a rescue, and he was rescued from a situation where the family that he lived with, or the woman he lived with, was a hoarder of animals. And she was told by the police that she could only keep 2 animals after her first infraction. And he was one of the 2 that she kept. And then she continued to start up hoarding again, and he was taken away from her. And fortunately, he found his way to Atlanta from somewhere in Florida. But he's another one that I look at him, and he's missing a quarter of his left ear. We don't know what happened there because he was at least 6 years old when he came to us. He only has 6 teeth, but he's just the sweetest, happiest being. And I just, again, that the word kinship is what really comes up for me. I walk outside and I see little lizards scurrying, and I see all kinds of things, and I'm just fascinated by them. And I feel this deep spiritual connection to them. And I don't want to squash them or hurt them or do any of that. So anyway, it's a long and rambling. I've been on Zoom for a long time today. This is a perfect intersection of 2 of my great loves, religious faiths and animals.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So David, Reverend Nathan, and Jacob, We are so happy that you are part of the Compassion Consortium, and we especially thank you for sharing with everybody else today. So again, thank you. And I guess it's over to you, Sarah. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay.
Thank you, William. Wow, you guys are awesome. I could have sat and listened to the rest of those journeys for a while, but we've got a schedule to keep. So we are going to engage in what we call blessings and prayers around here. And every September, I see this interest in animal concerns in some religious communities, and my inbox starts getting flooded with people sending me all these emails saying, there's an upcoming animal blessing, there's an upcoming animal blessing. And they're usually attached to the Feast of St. Francis. So, you'll start seeing a lot of organizations do their animal blessings, and that raises all sorts of ethical quandaries as well, and things that I like to dig into. And I appreciate the emails, but I also, I can't help but say to folks, like, we do this every month. Like, please come to the Compassion Consortium and check out our blessings and prayers. We do blessings and prayers for animals who are ill, for animals who have passed on, who are in need of support. We point our attention to the free living beings too, who are in imminent danger of being individual death or extinction, and those are being exploited. Like, we have no limits to who we extend these blessings and prayers to. Collectively, when we name these heartbreaks, it helps us feel less alone. And I think that sharing the heartbreaks and the joyful moments as a community, like the advocacy wins, reminds us that change is possible. It's a both and. And so, Phil, if you could bring me up on screen, we are going to start doing a practice that I call being the light. I'm seeing William right now, so I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to see what I'm visually doing here. So I'm just going to wait. There I am. I forgot where I was. I was somewhere else. I was off in Debbie land, moving my eyes around in some sort of new wonderful place. All right, so we're going to work with light again today. Last month, we did a kintsugi-inspired ritual where we mended a broken dog water bowl in memory of canine co-founder Forbes, who lived with Victoria and William. And other months, you've seen us use fire to metaphorically burn away harmful systems we think need to be jettisoned. And we've dissolved prayers in water. We've imbued blessings into seeds, and I've planted them. During Pride Month, we offered a litany of animal blessings towards animals colored in each of the hues of the rainbow. And in October, our animal chaplaincy training students will be dreaming up a whole bunch of new ways to offer blessings and prayers. And I can't wait to see what they come up with. And I'll bring some of those into the services for you folks. But if you're new to me, I just want to give a little caveat. I want to stress that neither blessings or prayers are found solely in a single religion, but they're found in most of them. And so we can be assured that blessing does not require precise words, a particular ritual. It doesn't have to occur only on a particular day, like a saint's feast day. It can happen anytime. You can also do this outside of our service to be a blessing. So I'm going to leave you with this succinct definition of what a blessing is from an American spiritual philosopher and a self-described practical mystic named David Spangler, who wrote a book called Blessing, the Art and the Practice. And here's what David says, and then we'll get started. He says, a blessing is a flow of life force between ourselves and others, or between ourselves and the sacred. It's an act of connection. It restores through love a circulation of spirit among us that may have become blocked or forgotten or overlooked. It reconnects us to the community of creation. And so today I'm going to ask you, chat is open, so I'm going to ask you to put in the names of any folks who we need to reconnect to. Places where love has been blocked or forgotten or overlooked, or some special love needs to go. And then I'm going to light some lights And I'm going to bring in some icons. Y'all know I love to travel with my extra animals. All right, here we go. And I'll start with a special request from advisory board member Lisa Levinson from In Defense of Animals. She requests we offer support and healing love to the soul of an innocent baby bear in Mexico who wandered into a community of people in dire need of humane education and spiritual reverence for all life. The more love we can portal to this traumatized baby bear who's left his body, the better. And I'm going to bring in a prayer for Kelly Van Camp, who passed on August 1st, for Moet, for Snowball, Midnight, and for Forbes. Victoria, I got you something in Mexico. How about that? For Forbes, we'll bring in the dogs. We have Cookie and Cayman, all the animals, wild and domestic, affected by forest fires, absolutely. My dog doesn't want to stand. Here we got him. Bringing in cats. Bringing in Stanley and Ginny and Cece and Dozer and Frankie. Chaji, Nima, Bo. The Shivaria Reeves. The Yellowstone wolves who are being hunted again because their protections were lifted. Oh, I want to utter some four-letter words. The animals of the Galapagos who are being threatened. The domesticated animals who are stuck in human systems. Animals affected by floods and hurricanes. Tabitha, Satori, Kensho, Zen, Karma, Tazia, Danny, Randy, Kuroneko, Salem, rescued and injured greyhound, Bella, Bera, Forbes, Avery, who is missing. May Avery find their way where they need to be for safety. All of the people in Puerto Rico. Animals hit on the road. Thank you. Yes, deep and dear to my heart. I love this little guy, just keeps wanting to fall over on me. Here we go. Take a deep breath, folks. Take a deep breath for all of these beings, for the women of Iran, for the baby voles who Debbie was trying to help this week. Take a moment to witness all of those who've passed on to the what's next, and all of those who need our help, our support, our love, our connection, all oppressed beings of the universe, human and other than human, habitats, rivers, trees, forests, mycelium, and all of the beings that call you home. Another reason to eat well. In our closing prayer, take a deep breath, folks, and speak along with me. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and this freedom for all. May it be so. Amen. So mote it be. And any other ending word, folks, that you would like to add into there. William, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Reverend Sarah. So we always close with a few announcements about what's coming up at the Compassion Consortium. So on October 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, in honor of the October 4th Feast of St. Francis of Assisi, we'll be presenting our film night discussion featuring the beautiful vintage film Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. This is a very uplifting and visually stunning dramatization of the life of St. Francis. And we'll have a special panel to discuss St. Francis and what it means to live in the legacy of this spiritual luminary. The panel members will be Reverend Janet Warner Chapman, historian Elaine Hutchison, who's with us today, and Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Reverend Father John Deere. So that is October the 11th. And then at our next service, which will be our next Sunday service, which is October 23, we will be featuring an interview by Victoria with Renee King Sonnen, who is the founder of the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And she will discuss her journey from being the wife of a cattle rancher to her and her husband's new life as vegans and owners of a farmed animal sanctuary on the same site as the former cattle ranch. And then the next thing is, oh yes, we will have our next engaged members spiritual practice session at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Monday, October 17th. And on that particular practice session, we'll be featuring the first of Victoria's series of seasonal wellness Ayurvedic practices.
Oh, can I just say something about October 11th first?
course.
Reverend Father John Deere, if you haven't heard of him, is just a superstar in the peace movement. He has been arrested like 80 times for nonviolent civil disobedience. He was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize by Bishop Desmond Tutu. So it's kind of amazing that we even have him. And I know that what he's going to have to say about St. Francis, along with our other two wonderful panel members, is going to be so cool. Plus that old movie, Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, one of my favorites. Okay, seasonal healing practices from Ayurveda. We do have for engaged members a special gathering once a month. And what I propose is for the seasons as they change over the next year, I'm going to do a little class, an experience, workshop with the engaged members about how we can be healthy in each season. You know, we're already healthy because of how we eat and how we think and how we live. But Ayurveda is a beautiful spiritual tradition from India. It's about the only healing tradition, medical tradition that comes directly from a spiritual source. And it's still recognized today by the World Health Organization as a viable healing modality. So become an engaged member and be healthier as well as more engaged. Thanks.
If you enjoyed the service and if you want to support our programming, there is a way to do so on our website at the link that's posted in the chat box. And if you're interested in learning more about our membership page is also posted in the chat. And today we are announcing some new perks for new members that are also available to all of our existing members. For all of our members, we are offering a free DVD or download of the film, A Prayer for Compassion, that was produced by Victoria and Thomas Jackson. And for our engaged members, we are offering a free signed copy of either Reverend Sarah's book, Sacred Send-Offs, or Victoria's book, Main Street Vegan. And you can just contact us through compassionconsortium@gmail.com and let us know if you would like to get those. And of course, if you want a book, we'll need to get your address and how you want it signed. But there's more, because a while ago, one of us, and I think it was Victoria, said that, well, Buddhists call themselves Buddhists, Catholics call themselves Catholics, Jains call themselves Jains, Muslims call themselves Muslims. But what do we call ourselves? And so I am here to announce that we are officially now known as Compassionists. And you don't have to become a member to become a Compassionist. Just being here at our services shows that you are in fact a compassionist. So I think that is the end. Well, okay, so you'll see in the post about the membership, and okay, there is one more thing. So,
Oh yeah, don't forget this one, William.
We're talking about the Road to Eden, right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so please consider joining us at the Road to Eden, which is an event we are co-hosting together with the spiritual foreman Forum at Unity Village near Kansas City, and it's October 28th through the 31st. And Sarah tells me that our hotel block will be released at the end of the month. So if you'd like to join us there in person, please don't wait to sign up. But there is also a discounted rate virtual option for those who you'd like to join us, but you can't travel. And so that is in the chat, but we now have a special Road to Eden video that gives you even more information. Phil, can you play that now?
This October 28th through 31st, join us for the Road to Eden, a whole planet spirituality retreat in the heart of the nation at Unity Village, Missouri. Experience the sacredness of the Unity Village grounds, home of the Unity movement where co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore pioneered and advocated for ethical veg living in the early 1900s. It's a wonderful place to be on retreat, to heal our personal and planetary consciousness, amplify our message of nonviolence, and learn about making value-based lifestyle changes. Over 3 days, we'll provide a variety of workshops, spiritual practices, and excellent plant-based cuisine, as well as opportunities for collaboration, dialogue, and visioning. This year, we're going hybrid, offering a virtual as well as in-person experience. You can learn more about this retreat at thespiritualforum.org/retreat. This is the time. This is the place. Come to connect, collaborate, and co-create a love-centered world free of exploitation.
Victoria,
Thank
it's
you
over
all
to
for
you.
joining us at Sunday service.